Let's talk about this stimulus and what you'd like to see. Where do you think are the holes right now? I know that we're trying to understand better where the CARES Act has landed and how it's being distributed and how that plays out before another stimulus package is coming up. But what are you and your colleagues talking about in terms of the real need for a fourth stimulus package, Senator?
Well, it's an important question right now, and as we look at the efforts that we've put out through the CARES Act and CARES 3.5, it's been around jobs. So what can we do to get people back to work? This is the number one thing I think that we've done to help rebuild this economy quickly after implementing the CARES Act. Nearly $3 trillion of aid, and roughly half of that still has to be deployed. And I've actually spoken with Secretary Mnuchin about ideas I have for how we can continue to use that stimulus to get jobs built back up, get our employers open for business. We still need states to open. That's happening gradually, but here I am in Washington. Much of the city is still shut down. We need our economies to open back up.
Yeah, I want to ask you about that because we've seen a little bit of an increase of COVID-19 cases in pockets across the country. That's raising concern of a second wave of coronavirus and whether or not it's emerging. In Georgia, the statewide shelter-in-place order ended April 30th, and today there are nearly 54,000 cases. So, Senator, how are we supposed to, balance the idea that we want this economy back in a normalized zone, and yet the more we come out and interact and engage, the more the risk increases for this pandemic to show it up again in a big way? We're seeing spikes.
Well, Maria, we're also seeing increases in testing, so naturally we're going to see more cases. And we know much more about this virus today. We know its transmissibility. We know what to do to prevent that. We need to be talking about how we reopen safely. When Georgia reopened, we continued to flatten the curve. We've seen hospitalizations decline, the rate of deaths decline. We've done it safely, and people are thrilled to be back in their jobs, getting back to church and synagogue. We need to continue that dialogue. We had a hearing this week about getting kids back to school, millions and millions of kids across our country. And I've developed a plan called USA Rise Plan about how we go back to work safely, rebuild the economy at the same time, meanwhile managing the safety precautions we need to take around the virus. But the number one concern right now has to be getting people back to work safely.
Yeah, these are all really important points that you make. Let me ask you about Georgia's primary elections on Tuesday. People were seen waiting in long lines for hours to vote. Could this be a preview of what November will look like, these long lines? Can we get this done any more efficiently?
Well, we absolutely have to. What we saw on Tuesday is unacceptable. It really doesn't represent the best of Georgia. I know that we'll come together to fix those challenges. People have to have free, fair access to vote, and we have to have confidence in the system so that everyone who wants to vote gets to vote. And yes, in November, we have to completely fix that, and I trust the state, the counties are very much working on that today.
And what are your thoughts as the president now heads to Dallas to talk about police reform? We've got these movements across the country to defund the police. Senator, your reaction?
Well, I think the president has done a great job of demonstrating what we need to do. He, like I, has mourned the loss of George Floyd. Our hearts go out to his family. At the same time, I'm so glad to see justice being done swiftly in that case. That needs to happen. We cannot, however, defund the police. This movement is completely wrong. In fact, we need to give the police more resources. We need to honor the work that the police force around our communities do. They do tremendous work for us, keeping us safe. And I know the president is looking at how we preserve law and order, and we can always improve. That's what America does. There's always room for improvement. And I trust that what comes out of this process will be positive. It'll bring that needed change so that police officers get the respect that they deserve, the resources that they need to keep our communities safe. And I have to say thank you to our law enforcement community for everything they do every day across the community, because I know they want the bad apples rooted out too.